Canadian trucking industry has really had a lot of issues in 2023, and now heading into 2024, we are seeing much of the same, and it looks like it's going to last for a little while longer here. The trucking industry is definitely an inherently cyclical in nature type of business. But have we ever really seen a cycle like this in recent memory or ever really in history? Just a year after truckers enjoyed unprecedented freight volumes and rates, driven by the post pandemic consumer spending, a perfect storm found to remind us of the industry's cyclicality. Consumers definitely started to stop buying, they started to pull back on spending on goods in favor of experiences that don't travel on truck. For example, vacations and shows and things of that nature. A lot of new entrants into the business has also given us a look into the industry as something that's very cyclical, and where spot market rates and volumes suddenly found themselves faced with little freight, low rates, overpriced equipment purchases at the peak of the cycle, of course, and of course, rising diesel prices. An overcapacity of trucking services defined the freight markets in 2023. And experts anticipate this will definitely get into the second half of 2024, despite the record bankruptcies and exits from the segment at the moment. We can take a look at this market and say, yep, this is exactly how it goes, but I don't think I've ever seen a cycle as long as this one. This has been next level when it comes to the length of low or rock bottom pricing. Some other issues that we've been dealing with in the Canadian trucking industry is the driver Inc. companies. Now, the controversial misclassification of truck drivers as independent contractors under a scheme the Canadian Trucking Alliance has called Driver Inc. continued definitely to be a very big issue in 2023, and looks like it's still going to be this way in 2024. The issue has become very much widespread, with carriers in Quebec and the Atlantic provinces complaining for the first time that the practice has spread all the way into their regions as well. In January of this year, the Canada Truck Operators Association, or the CTOA, it's comprised mostly of carriers from the South Asian trucking community, announced its presence with a gala dinner consisting of more than 200 carriers and 1,000 guests. It pushed back against the CTA's Anti-Driver Inc. campaign, claiming its own members have been targeted and that its legal interpretation suggests that there's nothing untoward about the classification of truck drivers as independent contractors. Governments at the federal and provincial levels remained kind of mixed, meeting with both groups and showing little commitment to enforcing existing tax laws against carriers who employ drivers in this manner, and this ensuring it will continue to be an issue in the year to come. In addition to this, the ELD mandate has taken the full effect, kind of. So it should have been a non-issue as electronic logging device requirements took hold in January after years of planning and discussions and meetings on this subject. Most fleets had already made the transition in anticipation of the rules. But as we got into 2023, some jurisdictions seemingly kind of pushed back against this. BC pushed back its mandate for provincially regulated carriers to August 1st and Quebec to April 30th. Some provinces, including Alberta, Saskatchewan, and recently Nova Scotia, have not announced plans to require provincially regulated carriers to adopt electronic logging devices. In addition to this, some other things that have affected Canadian trucking industry is the yellow bankruptcy. 30,000 unionized truck drivers found themselves out of work in the summer of 2023 after the bankruptcy of the US-based LTL carrier Yellow Corp. And because of excess capacity in the market, there was little in the way of related freight boom, as that freight was quickly taken up by other players. One of those players is Transforce, or TFI International's T-Force Freight, as they're called, which purchased two of the bankrupt carrier's U.S. terminals. About 128 Canadian drivers and owner-operators were affected by this closure. In addition to this, there's some municipal issues as well. In Caledon, Ontario, police were investigating a November shooting that left 2 people dead and 1 injured at a property linked to an illegal truck parking operation. In January, the town successfully prosecuted 2 illegal trucking companies, resulting in a court order to cease operation at 2 properties, including the one as mentioned. There are lots of illegal truck yards of various sizes operating in Caledon, Ontario. And cities like Mission, British Columbia, and Cambridge, Ontario are rerouting trucks from their downtown cores as trucks juggle for space with four-wheelers and, of course, pedestrians. Windsor, Ontario has launched a truck route study to update the road network, which includes the busy cross-border Ambassador Bridge and the Detroit-Windsor Tunnel. There also seems to be a lot of mergers and acquisition deals that continue into 2024. Now, it may seem like it was a quiet year, but there was 20 transactions reported, mostly of the smaller tuck-in variety. Perhaps the biggest strategic acquisition came with Titanium Transportation purchasing Crane Transport, establishing a foothold in the U.S. asset-based trucking market. Canada Cartage did so with their own purchase. They purchased GTI Group and its U.S. affiliates, indicating Canadian carriers aren't shy about entering the U.S. market, and indeed, it looks like they're looking for an opportunity for future growth. Now, there's also an issue when it comes to higher standards for training. It definitely is a topic in the Canadian trucking industry. Mandatory entry-level training, or MELT standards, continue to spread across the country, with Atlantic provinces the latest to commit to strengthening training standards for commercial truck drivers. While details on the recently announced Atlantic Canada plans remains a little bit mixed and a little bit foggy, the Ontario Trucking Association president, Stephen Laskowski, has said publicly on a couple of occasions that the association would like to see the formation of a provincially run Quebec-style training program for truck drivers and mechanics. We'll kind of see what happens in 2024 when it comes to this kind of stuff. Now, obviously, EV adoption is accelerating, and this is also pushing into issues in Canadian trucking. Canadian fleets, particularly in BC and Quebec, where generous provincial incentives exist on top of federal programs, have been quick to adopt electric trucks. And the deployment of these trucks in Canadian winters operating Canadian roads will prove the readiness of the technology in the long run. Both Freightliner and Volvo have sold Class 8 electric trucks in the Canadian market in the last calendar year. While several refuse companies are collecting trash using the Mack LR electric and smaller medium-duty EVs as well, this can be found on multiple roads across the country in multiple municipalities. The march towards decarbonization of Canada's trucking industry has definitely begun, albeit with measured steps to forward-thinking fleets with strong environmental, social, and governance commitment. In addition to this, there's also been some issues with cybersecurity and fraud. It was the year we became painfully aware that the trucking industry is a primary target for cyber attacks and fraud. A major electronic logging device supplier was taken offline for weeks after a cyber attack that disabled its electronic logging devices and the fleet management platforms. An Ontario-based hacker demonstrated to the industry its susceptibility to hacking when he disabled a tractor trailer in front of a live audience at a conference. And freight fraud and double brokering were also rampant as fraudsters sought to take advantage of carriers desperate for good paying loads. In addition to this, we got to also look at the fact that artificial intelligence is here. AI was probably a kind of a word that was used in 2023 a lot, but there's more to it than just a word being thrown. We saw demonstrations of how artificial intelligence can benefit the trucking industry, automating mundane or repetitive tasks and allowing employees to focus on more sophisticated problems. It can also bring predictability to fleet maintenance operations, notifying managers when parts may be susceptible to failure, and it can also improve the reliability of technologies such as dash cams, providing greater insights on driving behaviors to fleet managers as well. These are just some ideas of issues that are going on in the Canadian world. Okay, Canadian trucking has been changing decade by decade, and it looks like that change is going to accelerate moving forward. I think for the stepping stone for a lot of you Canadian truckers that get a chance to watch this video or go through this entire video, or Canadian trucking owners, can definitely attest to the fact that the industry has changed and there's a lot of new pressures involved, including inflation, the price of diesel fuel, artificial intelligence, driver inc companies, cybersecurity and fraud, and everything else that we have talked about in this video. What are your common challenges as either Canadian truckers, owner-operators, or company drivers? Or if you're a company owner, what are some challenges that you see in this industry? What can we do to fix it as a community? And do you believe that Canadian trucking companies do hold just as much power as American trucking companies do in their own respective markets? Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please give it a like, a comment, a share. Give us a subscribe. We're doing everything we can to spread the word of Canadian trucking and North American trucking as a whole. Thank you so much for watching, and looking forward to seeing you in one of our upcoming videos that is conversing with you in the comment section below. Thank you so much, and give us a subscribe if you want. Thank you.